failure is going to happen. Success is going to happen. And when you can treat them with equal levels of importance, okay, cool. I failed. Awesome. I succeeded. Great. What are we having for lunch?
Exactly.
It really, and again, I'm not denying the pain that happens right when something that you spent so much time building, your blood, sweat, and tears, and it just tatters and shreds. I get it. That's hard. That's hard. And when you have that internal connection, that's what allows you to move through those seasons of difficulty and not lose yourself.
Welcome to Crazy Beautiful Truth. I'm Sheila Delaney, your host, and I am here with Amar from Arizona. I'm in the dumping rain, dead of winter at the end of March in Seattle. Don't you miss it?
I do, actually. I do. You'd never think that I would say that sun gets a little boring after a while, but it's like, oh, look, another unseasonably hot, sunny day in Arizona.
That large glowing orb doing its thing again.
Yeah, exactly.
Oh, Amar, thank you for being here with me. I'm so excited about this conversation. You and I have worked together over a number of years. And for clarity, that's been me reaching out to you and really tapping into your wisdom and your experience and your intuition and your knowing what do you do with the term psychic?
What I really come to realize about like psychic, intuition, all of those, the clairs, all of those sixth sense things, I really think it's just super, super highly developed pattern recognition. I think it's just somewhat, and we know this, science tells us that we're perceiving things before they actually happen, right? The Heart Math Institute has tons of work on this that proves that. And so I think intuition, abilities, psychic, whatever, it's just pattern recognition that's dialed up a notch or two above most humans. I think that's really all it is.
Yeah. I love that definition. And I hope that people hear that as it's not something that makes anyone in particular special or more guru-ish or more, more tuned. Yes. More smart? No. And one of the things that I have appreciated about working with you is that you make offerings of the patterns that are stirring for you. And then it's mine to receive or, accept, modify, decline, make my own, sit with. And that makes it just really fun. And it doesn't give me a pass. In my experience, people who are in the spiritual healing community can sometimes go in devoid of inner authority. Do you see that too?
All the time. And I am always very kind of side-eye with anybody who is not ultimately pointing the client back to themselves.
Yes.
Any institution, any practice, any practitioner, any organization that is saying, you need me to succeed, or without me, you will fail. Think twice and then think twice again about before you hitch your wagon to them, because it's not true. It's just not true. It all comes from you and it all returns to you. And whether or not you can actually see that is one thing, but just because you can't see it doesn't mean it's not true.
Right. Your work has been shifting in language and direction, and you have developed something called the Coherence Method. Let's start first with what is coherence?
Right. God, that's the $1 million question, isn't
Isn't
it?
it?
For me, coherence is something that I recognize most clearly in the absence of. It's the absence of internal strife. It's the absence of tension. It's the absence of competing desires or a desire and then another voice that says, no, you can't do that. That's bad. That's wrong. Coherence is all systems congruent and moving just sort of easily and freely in the same direction. Even if you're in a very heightened state, let's say, you're a professional athlete or someone who runs on really intense levels, coherence is relative. For that athlete who has been training like this for decades, for them, this is just another day at the office, right? This super intense, like high peak performance. They know what it feels like when they're in the pocket and when they're not. Same thing with on the other end of the spectrum, someone who's a stay-at-home parent whose job is something different than we might assume a job to be, but it's still work. Let's not fool anybody.
Right.
That person's coherence is going to be relative to their life and their experience. But the overarching truth is coherence is something that you know it when you feel it, or more clearly from the clients that are coming to me, coherence is often the opposite of the state that you arrive in.
Yes. This makes so much sense to me personally, thinking about when I'm feeling the most disrupted, but I'm calling it irritated. I'm feeling the most in conflict, but I might recognize it as a victimhood because I'm usually pretty practiced at taking responsibility. But I'll look around, I'm like, why is everything against me? And I catch the voice. I'm like, dangerous terror, flag, flag,
Yep.
flag, flag, flag. And that's usually my clue is I have landed in the opposite of the space where I know that I am at my best and
Yeah.
clearest. And I'll even say my most vital, like I'm more plugged into my life force. Is that a fair comment?
Yeah, because you're not running on someone else's battery, right? It's not someone else's agenda. It's not someone else's directive. It's not someone else pointing and saying, do this or else, right? That's boot camp. And as you know, if you're a newbie, a soldier in the ranks, the last thing that they're providing you with is coherence. That's on purpose. They want to rattle you out of this old routine, i.e., old identity. That's really what it comes down to. We are allegiant to patterns. The nervous system prefers familiar chaos to unfamiliar peace.
What's that about?
It's just looking for what it knows,
To
right?
protect us, I guess.
Yeah. And I think really what it's looking for is continuity. I think that sometimes it's protection, sometimes it's well-being, but I don't think, if we can personify or objectify the nervous system for a moment, I don't think the nervous system is waking up before it clocks in and go, I want Sheila to be safe today. It's saying, I just want the same version of Sheila today that I knew yesterday.
Yes.
Look at the truth that all of these patterns predominantly are formed before we're 7 years old. You're working with a system that, for all intents and purposes, is 7 years old. And that's all it understands is what happened then. So it's always trying to put us back in that space because it's what the nervous system understands. And its number one job is to keep us viable. So, what better way than if I always know where you are 24/7, you're the dog tied to the leash in the backyard. I always know where you are. And you think that you have freedom, but only to the degree that I have given you the lead, the length of the leash. That's where you are.
So good. As in, not good, but clear.
Yeah.
That is so clear and helpful to consider. I'm reading this great book right now by Michael Pollan. A World Appears. It's this exploration of when are we programmed? How are we programmed? What is consciousness? What is free will?
You said something that it really hit me, and that was that humans are programmable. And I agree,
Yes.
inherently, we are programmable.
Yes. I've, heard that between the ages of birth and 7, our minds are sitting in this, the same state as REM sleep. Right. And so everything just drops straight into the code. Everything that mom said, everything that the kid at school said just drops in and then becomes ours to sort. And so here I am, 45 years later, thinking I am accessing my inner authority, thinking I am brilliant. And really, it's Roberta's voice from second grade, 2 chairs over.
Yeah. And most of our responses are inherited or adopted, as is most of our identity. In those early stages, our only job as an infant is to bond with the people that feed us, change us, keep us warm, keep us safe, keep us healthy. We don't have the capacity to question. Aunt Betty's telling me that love is for suckers and I'm a fool if I fall in love. I don't know as a 5-year-old, wait, Betty, well, tell me about your unresolved intimacy issues. No, I just think like, oh, okay, Aunt Betty's an adult. She's in charge. She's right. So I just now have to avoid love for the rest of my life.
Right. Right.
Forward until I'm in my 30s and I'm like, why can I not get a date to save my life? Because your nervous system believes love is for suckers. Don't fall in love. You're just going to get hurt.
Yeah. So tell me why this shift, this focus on coherence. Why coherence now?
Gosh, that's a huge question. I can say for myself, my journey to this work started at the end of last year. I've had this healing practice for almost 15 years. It was an incredible experience, vital, like exciting, vibrant, real, visceral, challenging, wonderful, terrible, like all of the things. Like those 15 years were the full spectrum of human experience, but it has also lived its life. Like I was just at this point where I was like, okay, things just don't fit like they used to. And so I started asking new questions like, where do I want to go? What is the direction that I want to do? What life do I want to create for myself? And I had just moved to Sedona. This was August of last year, so towards the end of the year. And so what I really started asking was, do I want to do this work anymore at all? The answer was yes. I know that I'm still here to highlight, illuminate, reveal for people. But the healing space is what started to feel very empty for me. And you had kind of touched on it earlier. My practice really has been built by I go through something, I have a collapse, I have an experience, I find a way to rebuild myself in the vision of this more expanded self. And that's what I share with people. So everything that I talk about and everything that I share is always from my own experience. People say, "What's the source?" I lived it and came out in one piece. That's the source.
Right.
So I started to ask, okay, if I do want to do this work, but I don't want to heal anymore. So that brought the big question. Okay, well, then what happens after healing? What does life look like after healing?
Okay, could we just pause on that question?
Yeah.
What happens after healing? I believe that what I am seeing out in the world is this is an addiction to healing.
Yep.
And even when I look culturally on the other end, and I look from a woman's experience, we will talk about healing. Oh, I'm working on my boundaries, and all the girls gather and we're all, yay, sister, right? You're working on your boundaries until she's healed and has them. Nobody likes a woman who's done the work and now has really clear boundaries that we are on the other side of.
Yeah.
The fact there can be an after healing.
Yeah.
And so I just really love that question.
Yeah. And I just started thinking of it in the very, very practical, sort of pragmatic perspective. If I had a broken limb and was going to physical therapy to heal the limb, there's going to come a very clear time when the therapist is going to say, "You're done. Use the cane for another couple weeks, but use it less and less. And by the end of the 2 weeks, you should be walking without it just fine." Cool. So then why am I going to keep going to the physical therapist? I think what we have done is we have gotten so used to outsourcing our authority, we will just fall for the next truck coming down the road that says, "Oh, I have something you need." "Oh, you do? Oh my God, this thing," right? And then we turn it into the suffering Olympics. I justify my healing because I have had such a horrible life and my life has been more horrible than yours. Therefore, I am justified in continuing to heal perpetually.
Yeah.
You can't heal forever. And we have in our spiritual world and even outside of it, we have commodified it. We have turned it into like, "Oh, I have a headache. I'll go get an aspirin. Oh, I'm not feeling right. I'll go get a Reiki session." Okay, fine. But wouldn't you just rather get to the point where you don't have headaches anymore? Or maybe
Yes.
you don't. Maybe you want to be perpetually in a state of brokenness so that you can have an excuse to always be held. That is the key. You do not have to be broken in order to be held.
We don't need to be broken to be held. What is holding me?
You're holding the first thing that holds you is your intention. What's the finish line? Why are you here in the first place? That's the emotional architecture tool I've been working with for more than 12 years. It's front loading the end result. The only reason a human does anything is because of the state we believe we will achieve when we have it, whether that's a person, a thing, an object, an experience, etc. So first of all, you need to decide, well, what is it that I'm doing anyway? Well, I don't want to feel pain anymore. Okay, that's not healing. That's just bringing you back to ground zero. That's bringing you back to where the chronic pain is no longer happening. Okay, is that healing? Well, I'm not in pain anymore, so part of me was healed. But I would assert that it's not healing until you are able to consciously recreate the outcome on your own.
Yep. So then the picture that I get is I really am becoming, and this is, my language, I become my own best ally.
Yeah.
I become the radar for when, oh, I do have a headache. I'm doing all the things and I do have a headache and I know what to do with it.
Yes. And sometimes I say, I just need an aspirin.
Yeah.
It's not that we're demonizing healing or therapy or things like that. It's that you have to get clear on, am I choosing this because it's intentional and deliberate, or am I living at the mercy of my nervous system? And I guarantee you, if there's no end in sight, that's what I call the trap of almost. The nervous system has you chasing something that you will never achieve, and it knows this because when you're just circling the airport, you're not at a threat. You're not in danger because you're not there. You're not landed. You can't be rejected. You can't be chased. You can't be harmed. If you're always a moving target, you're harder to hit. So you have to begin by deciding, what does the end point look like for me? When will I know that I am healed? You can't leave that up to somebody else.
Right.
And it takes me back to my initial intention when I started my work 15 years ago. I want my clients to get to the point where they don't need me anymore. I'm not interested in dependence. If I want a dependent, I'll go to the Humane Society and adopt a pet.
Yes.
And I don't work with people when I'm seeking support and help. I do not work with people who do not have a clear endpoint for their practice. I do not work with people who do not require me to show up and step up and apply the tools myself. I can give you the tools, but you got to swing the hammer. And if you're not willing to swing the hammer, we are not a fit, because I don't want you to need me perpetually.
Right. I had an experience with a client one time. I'm curious how you would handle this. So the situation was she was talking to me and she was revealing some vulnerability, some very real trauma that had happened, that was staying with her from some very hard experiences as a young person. We're on the phone and I could feel her as though she were standing on her own pillar and I was standing on mine. And I felt her starting to tip over and lean on me. And I remember what I did. I remember stopping the session saying, I want to notice. I feel you leaning on me. I am going to lift you back. I want you standing on your own center of gravity. And she's like, what? I was like, because you can. She's like, wait, what? Nobody has ever told me I can stand on my own center of gravity. I'm like, you are perfectly equipped, but I'm going to stand you there. I'm coming back over mine. Let's do this again. And I imagine you must feel this.
I think now I'm at the point where I have enough systems that create enough friction for someone to be really clear that I'm the person for them. And that also includes sometimes I will start a session and say to the person, this isn't a fit. Or sometimes it's, if we're investigating my longer term authority intensive, which is a 3-month minimum, that's why I have an intake call. That's why I have an intake form. Because what that tells me, if someone can't bring themselves to spend the 15 minutes to complete the intake form, if they can't bring themselves to show up and be on time for the 45-minute free conversation that we're having to assess whether or not this is the right time, if you can't even get those things taken care of accurately, then we are certainly not going to be a match for working together, because I
Right.
work with people who are ready to face themselves. And that requires someone who already understands, at least fundamentally, how to stand on their own. Now, everyone has their own deficits, right? Some people, like I think a lot of my work really starts and centers around the breath. Because you know this, right? The breath is always a measure of what's happening with the nervous system. And so if I can control my breath and maintain it even and regulated, then I know that I am not going to tip over into panic attack or, fear response. With some people, we might just start on how to breathe. So it's not that you have to have skill. It's not that you have to have like, oh, I've done 15 ayahuasca journeys, or I've worked with 15 coaches, or I've done 10 TED Talks. I don't care about that. It's the state in which you arrive that I am paying attention to. Because if you're at a place in your life where you need to be propped up, and hey, we all need that from time to time. I'm not judging that. My God, I have needed so many props in my life. I could
You
be
and
a
me both.
farmhouse.
Yes.
But that's not where my work lies. My work is the intersection of inner authority and nervous system coherence. So if you have yet to even perceive that you are an authority, we can start there. But if someone is incapable of regularly standing on their own, then they need to see somebody else before they come to me, because I'm at more of the advanced level. I'm not the 101 level.
Right. But that's what I would say about having worked with you as well. There's enough work to feel the language, not just to be hanging on the words. So breath is a great place to start. If someone's listening and they're like, okay, coherence, I'm getting a sense of what it's not, which is a great start. That's like a legitimate beginning. They have a sense they're in authority because, they have to have a lot of confidence. They have to be the man or the woman at the top and bring the clarity and bring all the things. And there isn't a soft space for them to land.
Yeah.
Where do you start with them?
Who wrote the script? Would be my first question. Look, I get it. When you're on the stage in front of your whole team, and maybe it's the whole national offices are there, and you've got 500 plus people and all of them are there, it's a performance. Let's be honest. It's set intentionally. It's lit intentionally. The colors are chosen intentionally. There's not one thing that's left to chance or just sort of, we'll see what happens. So I respect that you know your role. And we're all playing a role. You and I aren't the same people as we are with our best friends, as we are with our clients, with our, biological family. No one is. So this is the thing. This is what it always comes back to. It's not about what you do. It's how you are doing it. Who wrote the script that you're going to read? Who's driving the bus? What's the fuel in the tank? Are you doing this on purpose and intentionally and saying, okay, I may not want to do this, but this is what I'm being called to do, so I'm going to do it. It's about doing it with eyes wide open and clarity. This is the truth. The human experience is going to call all of us to do some things we just don't want to do. I don't want to have to do that. I don't understand the concept of having to pay to live on a planet that nobody owns, but that's just the rules that we have established right now.
Right.
And if I want to live in someone else's house, I have yet to find a person that will let me do that for free.
Right.
So it's not that I am, rising up against landlords and tenants union and, no, that's not the point. The point is, what is my frame of mind when I'm paying my rent? What is my mindset? What's happening emotionally, internally when I'm writing that check or making that transfer? That's what we're paying attention to, because eventually you will have a choice. Continue to power through, override the signal, override the hunger, override the exhaustion, just one more thing, one more thing, one more thing, which is what I call internal self-abandonment. You can continue that, or you can say, it's not that I don't build, I just choose to build from presence, not pressure.
How does somebody recognize the difference if they're learning this? And I'm thinking, let me be very specific about me at stages of my life. What is the fuel that I'm burning? When I was an attorney, way back when, 20 years ago, 25 years ago, I was burning the energy of drive. I had something to prove. I wanted to make a lot of money. There was a fuel in the tank that drove and created momentum. I just don't have a lot of those anymore. And I remember someone saying to me, well, what if you let go of your drive? I'm like, well, then I'll be less successful. And I had a clear definition of what that meant. Well, I was right, 100% right, because my picture of success now is entirely different. So if I'm not driven by something to prove, I'm not driven by being a little bit to a lot mad, and I'm not driven by fear of putting a roof over my head, what the heck fuel am I burning?
Yeah. I think it does come back to, at least the first thing to identify is, what's the end goal? Do you just want to make a crap ton of money and go hard for 15 to 20 years and not take vacations and not take days off? It's not in no way am I judging anybody's actions. What I'm asking them to do is get honest about the why. If you say, I don't care about any of these employees and I'm going to bleed them dry so that I can retire and live on the top of a mountain that I own in 15 years, I certainly have some personal thoughts about that. But if that's
Right.
your goal, then that's your goal. But you have to be willing to put in what is necessary to create that outcome. That means divorcing yourself from your intuitive feeling centers, because I promise you, you're not a monster. You're going to have some moments of, oh God, what did I just do? Laying off those 2,000 people. You have to be willing to look someone in the face and go, yeah, I'm firing you because I want more money. Like, that's where it becomes performative. If what you want and what you say in service of what you want are not aligned, it's a performance. It might be an unconscious performance. You may have no idea that you're performing, but if you haven't given thought and clarified for you, what's the exit strategy? What is the point? Where do you decide, okay, I'm done? I have yet to meet anybody that I work with that has been able to clarify that. And it was me as well. I didn't get into this with any idea other than, I just can do this. I'm excited to do this and I want to help people. So I was building the business by default. I was arriving and then going, oh crap, there's no structure here to hold me. So let me scrabble and try to put something together. Now what I'm doing is, it's the opposite. I am building the systems and the structures that work for me.
Yeah.
I have reinstalled myself as the authority of my system. Therefore, the system recognizes me as the leader and is rebuilding itself around me. That is also mirrored by my physical life. My physical life also mirrors that internal architecture that says, I am the core, I am the center, I am the priority. Because if I am not in my highest level of well being, I am useless to anybody that I work with.
So what's the role of alignment? What's the relationship between alignment and coherence as you see
I
it?
think that they are the same, really.
Okay.
I think that to me, they're synonyms. I think that is when I am aligned with what's happening internally, also aligned with the goal that I have set for myself or the path that I have agreed to walk. I'm moving in the same direction, right? I'm aligned with the goal. I'm aligned with the end point. I'm not leaking energy. I'm not distracted. I think coherence is the same thing. What I want and what I do, what I say and what I believe are moving in the same direction. And it requires, this is another piece. Coherence ultimately requires a really, really well developed sense of what's happening internally,
Yeah.
because coherence is something that you feel first. The effects of incoherence compound, and you often don't see that you've been running coherent because broken people create broken systems. And you may not see that you created a broken system until 10, 15 years down the line, because if you're smart enough and you have enough resources, you can kind of punt mid, you can redevelop and redesign and rebuild to sort of, tape it together to hold the
Yes.
thing if you need to. But I think coherence and alignment are the same.
Mm.
I proceed towards what I have identified as my end goal. There's nothing within me that hiccups or stutters or resists. When there is, I stop. I get right. We reconvene. We re-examine what's happening, and we wait for coherence to re-emerge. My belief is that you are born coherent.
Okay.
Coherence isn't something that you build, it's something you return to. And the way that you return to it is by clearing the space of the internal conflict. And then it just naturally floats to the surface.
It's become important to me to become friendly with all of the parts of myself.
Mhm.
Do have this little rebel who's trying to run the other way wherever I'm headed.
Yeah.
And then I've got the terrified one who's sitting in the car. I got the warrior self. She's going to be out there charging out front. And I'm like, okay, sometimes she doesn't need to lead.
Yeah.
So it feels really important being able to catch the friction points and not make them wrong.
Right. That is the key.
Yeah. Talk to me about that part.
It begins by, like you said, first cultivating that observer perspective that allows you to realize, like, oh, the fact that I am having a thought or aware that I'm having the thought means the one I'm having the thought. That's the first entry point, to cultivate that sense of observation that I can watch, like, oh, okay, I'm feeling some panic rising. Oh, there goes the dry mouth, the sweaty palms, and the clench in the stomach. Ooh, there goes the shoulders up around the ears. Okay, wow, I wonder what's going on. So I can be in observance of the storm without being caught up in it. The key is, once you are able to differentiate yourself and disidentify yourself from the system, I am not the system. I am the operator of the system. So the key is, I can observe the system without abandoning it.
Observe it without abandoning it. Okay.
In other words, I'm coming into the living room. I see my sweet little puppy going piddle in the middle of the floor again. I have a choice: scream, holler, rage, give the puppy to the Humane Society, whatever, or just, no, honey, we don't go there, we go here. And I put it back on the pee pad. And it happens every single day. No, honey, we don't go here. We go, oh my God, I'm going to lose my mind. How many times
Yeah.
is it going to take for this puppy? Oh my God, if I have to clean up one more mess in the floor, I'm going to freaking lose my mind. Oh my God, this adorable little puppy that just doesn't know. And guess what? One morning you wake up, there's no mess, and you look outside and the puppy's in the backyard going to the bathroom.
Yeah.
That's what it takes. If the nervous system wants incoherence 99 times, you have to show up coherent 100 times. It's
Yes.
just about devotion to yourself. And don't tell me, C-level individual, that you don't have time. You are a liar, because you have dedicated and devoted yourself to building this incredibly impressive empire you have built. So don't tell me for a second that you don't know what it is to dedicate yourself to building something.
Right.
You just don't think that your internal architecture is as valuable as the architecture out there. But I guarantee you, this is the thing that ultimately supports that.
Yes.
Without this, you're going to lose all of that.
There's a phrase on your website that I love where you talk about success being fragile. And that's what you're pointing to, right? That when it's built on this. So how do we recognize fragile? Is there a way to recognize fragile success? Like, hey, wait, this is Granny's crystal. Let's treat this with respect. This is not, my hard fired kiln baked thing I can drop on the floor and it's going to roll. How do we know?
I think that's the deal with life.
Mm,
Life is fragile. I could go outside and get struck by lightning, hit by a bus, a tree could fall on me, and it's all over in an instant. Life is fragile. The one thing, though, that you always have, regardless, and this may sound like a bit of a platitude, but it's true, is you have your relationship with yourself. Failure is going to happen. Success is going to happen. And when you can treat them with equal levels of importance, okay, cool.
yeah,
I failed. Awesome. I succeeded. Great. What are we having for lunch?
exactly.
It
Yeah.
really, and again, I'm not denying the pain that happens right when something that you spent so much time building your blood, sweat, and tears and it just tatters and shreds. I get it. That's hard. That's
Yeah.
hard. And when you have that internal connection, that's what allows you to move through those seasons of difficulty and not lose yourself.
I'm thinking about the other barometer are our relationships. And so I think about being in it, being in that messy middle where, okay, we've got work and work is under control. The relationships are all shot to hell.
Yeah.
Or the relationships are good. I'm coming home. I'm enjoying my kids. My dog's not piddling in the middle of the floor anymore, whatever the thing is. But I go to work and I don't trust any of these fools.
Yeah.
When we get into this human aspect, this is where I think we hit messy middle.
Yeah.
Why?
The messy middle is where you move from unconsciously incompetent to consciously competent.
Yes.
The messy middle is where you say, I am a 3-star Michelin chef. I have every ingredient, every piece of equipment, every recipe under my belt, and I don't want to cook this stuff anymore. So stop cooking it. Then start asking your question. First of all, what version of me do I have to be to continue to show up in places that I don't want to be in? That's the first thing you have to reconcile with yourself. And it might be one of those things where you say, well, for at least the next 6 months, this is where I have to be. Cool. At least you know.
Right.
And then you decide, okay, right? You don't sell yourself short. You don't minimize the fact that you have those skills, you have that tenure, you have that experience, and it will serve you in some way. But you have to be willing to get really uncomfortable and say, I don't know what I want, or what I want has changed, or what I really want is something I've been telling myself my whole life that I can't really have. And why is that? Right? You have to get really clear. So the messy middle is where you start to take it all apart. The messy middle is the postmortem of what worked, what didn't, what am I no longer available for, what is a requirement moving forward. The messy middle is where you reclaim that authority, where you realize, like, oh my God, this whole time I thought that I was being disciplined, but what I was really doing was just abandoning myself at every turn. The messy middle is where you take accountability for the fact that your adrenal fatigue, as terrifying and as hard and as difficult as it is, babe, you chose that.
Yeah.
And you didn't choose it like chocolate or vanilla. You chose it when you said no to your physical needs over and over and over the course of 15 years. You are creating a debt account. There is going to come the day when you're going to have to sign for that.
Yeah.
That's just how it works. So the messy middle is where you get to start saying, I don't know. And I don't care because I'm figuring out what works for me. The messy middle is where you get to say, I don't want to do that anymore. And I'm not going to. The messy middle is where you get to say, I don't know what I want, but I don't want that anymore. So the messy middle is where it becomes yours again.
And I'm getting this picture of, it is my mess, which lets me do something with it. And taking responsibility, which I know in my lens is the first act of inner authority.
Yeah. Yeah. Just acknowledge it. Just bring it into the room. Just
Yeah.
bring it into the room and look at it. Because here's the thing. The system knows when you are performing authority and when you have claimed it. And the system is not going to bow to a false sovereign. And we've all done that, right? I am a strong being of light and power. Those are pretty words, but you don't believe it at all, right? So that
No.
breath comes in, you say it again, you breathe from the diaphragm. I am a powerful being of whatever, right? And the more you say it, the more you learn what it feels like when it's true, What does it feel like when my body believes it? And then what does it feel like when my mind believes it? And then we're on to the final, like, holy grail. What does it feel like when my nervous system believes it? And that is a very real thing that you can actually viscerally, physically feel. But if you've been operating and running the show only from here, from the neck up,
Yep.
then the first thing we're doing is reconnecting you with your body.
Yep.
You haven't even been in the body for 15 years. No wonder it's doing all sorts of crazy stuff. It's desperate for an authority.
Yes. And I tell you, when I look just at my journey with autoimmune disease, getting a brain bleed halfway through law school, and sitting in the hospital waiting, and me not tuning in to what is possible that I had contribution here. I was absolutely in the drive of get me back to class
Yeah.
because nobody can live if they miss contracts class one more time. It's such a strange obsession to reflect back on. And yet I also bow to my younger self and her commitment and her passion and just letting that be true and letting her be one of the parts that's in my system.
Yeah.
And I look at her, that younger version of me, and I think about these parts of ourselves and I think about the messy middle. It's also where often we overcorrect,
Yeah.
right? It's that place where we're going to experiment. And in my experience, first I'm going to have no boundaries and then nobody gets access to me,
Yeah.
right? And I'm like, no, these are my boundaries. The rest of you be damned.
Yeah.
How do we tell? And then we swing back a little bit less high, a little bit less far.
It's where we test and we trial and we see, okay, well, what happens when I do this? And the messy middle really, in many ways, is protracted by our unwillingness or our desire to keep bargaining with old patterns and really unhealthy behavior. Well, maybe I can just do a little bit of this. Okay, try it and see. Nope, still doesn't work. Maybe I can do just a little less of this. Nope, still doesn't work. So you finally reach the point where you realize the only way forward is if this is a hard line behind me and I never do that again. And you're going to try and you're going to see and you're going to try again and you're going to see. And that's where the messy middle is. And here's the key. I keep bringing it back to this. There's this Noel Birch model that I use a lot. And it's how adults learn. And we begin at unconsciously incompetent. We suck and we don't know it. And we arrive at consciously competent, which means I know how to do it, I know how to repeat it, and I can teach it. So it's about arriving at conscious competence. Yes, you're still going to have bad days. Yes, you're still going to have hard times. Yes, you're still going to get irritated at the person in the self checkout line who doesn't know how to use it. And they're
Right.
picking today to try
Yeah.
right in front of you, right? So you're still going to have those days. But the point is, like you said, that your inner Xena warrior princess, you're like, girl, just calm down. It's fine. We're in
Yep.
a hurry. We don't need to go hellfire on this person who's learning how to use the self checkout, right? The victim, like, honey, you don't have to be powerless to be held. I'm going to hold you right now. Stay with me. You don't have to play the victim role to get attention. Just ask for what you want. And so we begin to see the messy middle is where we meet our cast of characters and we really begin to figure out where they came from. And here's the key, everyone gets a seat at the table, but only coherence can speak.
Oh, that's a big deal. That's a major shift
Yeah.
for me. Because I am definitely at the point where I'm not much surprised by anybody who shows up in my own brain or mind or experience. I do a pretty good job of sitting everybody around the table and going, okay, I see you. Here's a coloring book. Amuse yourself for a moment. But the idea that it's coherence that speaks gives me an idea of this common ground. Like, here is the best of myself now. And I think about this when I'm facilitating. So when I go into a room and I'm working with a team, my job is to access the best of their collective wisdom. And so this table that you describe, that would be the coherent voice. It is the best of the collective wisdom. It's my warrior is talking to my child, is talking to my inner Zen self who's like, yeah, we're good. We don't need anything. Maybe some water, you know? And I really appreciate that. So coherence speaks and becomes a part of us that integrates the whole. That's the picture I'm getting.
Yeah.
Is that accurate?
Yeah, and coherent, it's so to clarify, when I say coherence speaks, I am the one that decides what comes out of this, right?
Yes.
And sometimes it's about sitting with my team of advisors, right? And saying, okay, we're at the round table. What do you want? You all, and the thing is you begin to realize that they always want the same thing. That's the thing, is that the desires really never change of these parts. One part always wants to be seen. One part always wants to rebel. One part always wants to run. One part always wants to burn it down, whatever.
100%.
And so sometimes that's appropriate. Sometimes if I'm asserting a boundary and maybe I'm just not comfortable with boundaries, I need my inner warrior to step up and give me the fire so that I can say it. But coherence speaks to me is what I use to remind myself I move from presence, not pressure. Perfect example. Yesterday, I've been working on this new website. So, yesterday, I shut down an old community. I started a new community. I started working on the new website and I did something else that I can't remember. All of this, like flipping and flopping and closing and building and opening, my nervous system was a wreck by the end of the day. And I was still had all of this website work in front of me. So, I was sitting down, I was going to start. And there was just something within me that was like, I am afraid. I am scared. What's going on? How you just shut down like a funnel of income, which it wasn't a lot. I think it was like not even $10. Like I'd had this sort of experimental community. Long story short. So I didn't work on the website because the promise I made to myself is I do not abandon the system, period. No matter what, I do not self abandon.
Yes.
So if I'm looking at a day full of work and I also have a couple of weeks, I don't have to work on the website. So I could give myself that space. Today, I'm going to work on the website because now I'm feeling excited. Now it's feeling clear again. Now I'm ready to go. So let's do it. What did that one day cost me? Nothing. What it would have cost me had I forced through would have been my own well being
Right.
and the trust that I had built within myself.
Yeah. That trust is a big deal. And I'm glad that that comes up because trust for me, I know in the way that I think about it, there's trust that I'm going to do the right thing. Okay. So there's that. It's necessary, it's helpful. But the trust that I'm more interested in is the trust that is I am fundamentally resourced,
Yeah.
fundamentally equipped, and available for my life.
Yeah.
That's a really compelling picture. Do we have that level of self-trust? Because if we do, that's probably a good marker for we're in coherence. Is that fair?
Yeah, and I think that yes, and people are going to have their areas that they are more naturally equipped to thrive in without effort, without having to prepare, without having to learn, right? I think of some people I know that are wildly successful entrepreneurs. I'm thinking of a friend of mine who has multiple businesses. He has multiple irons in the fire kind of all of the time. And now that I'm thinking about it, as long as I've known him, he's always had a bunch of stuff going on and talking to him about it recently and saying to him like how do you do this, like you just create something and it succeeds like every single time. He was like, I just don't ever question my ideas. He was like, I assume that every idea I have is a good and a viable idea, and that's just how I proceed. And even if I do something and it doesn't succeed how I thought it was, he was like, it's not because it was a bad idea. It's just because I didn't have all the parts in place or I didn't do it the right way or someone else or whatever. He was like, and if it fails, I move on. Like I don't dwell. And I was like, I could learn so much from you. Like that confidence. And really, what his
Yes.
confidence comes from is a place of unattachment. He doesn't care if it succeeds or not.
Right.
That's not where he gets his own value from. And that to me is what it all comes down to. If your value as a human is tied to what's happening out here, you have just put the keys to your happiness in someone else's hands, and we all do it. That is the paradox of this work. It's not about trying to escape your humanness or optimize or hack your way to being, free from those annoying things called emotions. No, it's that you know how to reconcile. You
Yes.
know how to be within yourself without abandoning yourself.
Yeah. I see that in relationship. Like I'm seeing the value that, sort of the application as a parent, as a mom, when my kids were little versus now, having two daughters who are 19 and 22. Profoundly different level of me understanding what is asked of me, my attachment decreasing. When it was little, of course I was attached. I need them to keep breathing and keep moving and be alive.
Yeah.
Like it's that basic. Now there's been a handoff. There's been they're entrusted to their own journey. I am always here. I got your back. You can ask for help. I'm going to offer it less, right? That's so helpful. And you could pass back to your friend. Yeah, this one's learning something from it too.
Yeah. And just said was so beautiful because coherence is that sense of you only notice friction when it's there.
Yeah.
Right. And when there is no friction, you don't stop to go, oh, there's no friction. You will have those days where you go, oh my God, wait, it's been like 3 days since I worried about that thing, and now it's been 3 weeks since I worried about that thing, and now 3 months, and wow, I haven't worried about that thing, and I don't know how long.
Yeah.
And what you said about your daughters was so beautiful, and I wanna just use that as an example for anyone who's listening. You allow coherence by giving permission to your relationship with them to evolve and grow. Incoherence, a discoherent relationship would be if you insisted on them always being who they have been.
Yes.
If you're trying to maintain continuity because you're feeling like, "Oh, my babies, and I'm a mom, and what does that mean if I'm not anymore?" Whatever,
Right.
that's just a great example that I think anybody could really relate to in those family and relational dynamics when you start to grow and move on. It's like when I was back in Wyoming last year caring for my dad, I found this postcard that my friend Melanie, who was like my best friend in high school, and it was she was so brilliant. And she had gone like the summer after graduation, she had gone to some like NASA aeronautics space lab to work on propulsion something. Like that's how smart she was. And I found this postcard from her, and I had already planned to move to Seattle at the time. And she was like, I wish we could be together maybe next year. Gosh, we had so much fun. And it just struck me in that moment, like you just in that moment, you don't know what's on the other side of what's to come. And in that moment, especially at 18 years old, you're so idealistic, and the world was my oyster and anything was possible. And to return to that state as a way to move through the world, I think is so beautiful. That expect the best, leave room
Yeah.
for anything to be possible, but also be crystal clear on what you're intending and how you want to move through it. And more importantly, where do you want to arrive? Because that is going to inform how you get there.
Yeah. Such a great invitation to a relationship to our imagination. We have to be able to envision things that don't exist yet or places we haven't arrived at yet. But if I really tap into my imagination, there's wisdom there. It is something that is birthed from within.
Yeah.
When it is
Yeah.
play.
And maybe it is about the shoes and the house and the things. So then dig deeper. What does that represent?
Right.
Right? I never felt important. I never felt safe. I never felt powerful. I never felt luxury. I never felt ease. I never felt, not having to scramble or whatever. So to take it back to what we were saying at the beginning, we're all just looking for an idealized state in the first place. So why not give yourself permission to explore that, which is what I do in my work. Is that's one of the first things we do is help people construct that emotional architecture, because that's the thing that carries you forward. And that's
Yeah.
the thing on those days when you're like, wait, what am I doing and why, what am I doing? Right? Those days, and I know you've had them as an entrepreneur. I just had one last week. I was like, is this pivot really where I need to be going? Like, is this really what I should be doing? Because I'm
Yes.
taking a huge gamble on this. And then I just sat with myself, and it just always came back to, yeah, this is where I'm being called. This is the thing that no matter what, it never goes away. And
Yeah.
so that's what I listen to.
And then we get to let it all be an experiment.
Yes.
And then we get to learn real time.
Yes.
And then we get to modify our relationship to it. And I really love, going back to where we started, this ability that you have to recognize patterns, and that this idea of intuition and listening to ourselves is about growing our own ability
Yep.
to notice patterns in ourselves, to move forward with that, to make those choices based on clarity, to sit in the messy middle and give ourselves permission to be right there. And then we find ourselves in this place of coherence. Um, and then everything is in motion. It's not static. That's what I'm getting at. So you talk about this place of almost to arrival. So what is the difference between this almost and this arrival? You have great language about this.
Almost is pressure without end. Arrival is presence with no pressure. Arrival is, surprisingly, almost every single person has this experience when they reach the state of arrival. Yeah, I always thought that I'd end up here someday.
Yeah.
Right? The arrival is the true desire that never
Mhm.
goes away. It gets covered up by so much stuff, the things we inherit, the things we adopt, the things that we believe are true without investigation, the things that we just assume are correct, and that's just the way it is. And so arrival is really the absence of that conflict. Arrival is the absence of the desire for more in that moment. And this doesn't demonize desire, right? You can have the most amazing meal of your life today. You're still going to get hungry again. Wanting more
Yes.
doesn't make you ungrateful or greedy. It
Right.
just means the reality is I'm going to eat more than one meal in my life and I'm hungry again. Does that make me greedy? No. So I think arrival is the place where it makes sense, where it's not conditional, where we're not looking for the boogeyman to jump out and say, haha, surprise, gotcha, just kidding. And the arrival, this is the key. You cannot arrive at arrival without the messy middle, because arrival is you choosing for yourself as the authority of your experience. And until you have installed yourself as the authority of your experience, you can never arrive there. And in order to arrive there, in order to know that you are the authority of your experience and to learn how to actually reinstall yourself, you must learn that in the messy middle.
That just lands as truth. And I invite listeners, like, pause right now and feel into your body to what you've been hearing. And does it feel true? I think you say this, only you know what truth feels like for you. Only I know what truth feels like for me. And it's taken some dialing in that sensitivity to recognize, oh, wait, what was that moment of calm
Yeah.
while somebody was speaking? And I was like, or the moment of exhilaration where something shot through the roof. And I was
Yeah.
like, wait, that one was for me.
Yeah.
The rest of this is cool, take notes, but that one was for me. So for people who are listening, how do they work with you? You've got your new website. Okay.
Yeah, they can go to my website. I'm a lot more active on Instagram, Amar Energy, than I used to be. I'm also on YouTube, Amar Energy as well. And then if they go to my website, they'll see at the top, there's a little button that says resources, and you can go to my course library on Paperbell. And I've got 6 really, really strong offerings right now that are all rooted in Coherence Reset. So it's basically stabilize is one level, clarify is the second level, and lead is the third. And lead is basically just code for I know who I am, I know what I want, and I know how to get there, or at least I'm figuring it out. And then I have a community called the Coherence Lab on Telegram, and then working with me one on one. The integrative session is when someone needs a light touch or a reframe. It's also a great way to get a sense of what it is to work with me. And then the authority intensive is the longer period. That's a 3-month minimum, and we build from there.
I highly recommend. There is something profound about the way that you use language as your medicine, and people will have recognized that over the course of this conversation too. And I know what a gift it is. It activates imagination and stirs the soup.
Yeah, and you've gotta, that stagnant water, you just gotta churn it up every once in a while. And here's
Yeah.
the thing, life is here to be lived. If you don't live it, it's gonna live you. So if you're not willing to get in and stir the pot, life will do it. It's fine. Just hang out
Yep.
long enough, it'll happen. So, eventually you'll get there. But I really think it's just like, and even if people want the really entry level, sign up for my newsletter, because then they'll get the emotional architecture, the coherence guide. And the coherence guide is really the beginning of them starting to ask these questions and do this work. And it's also a great barometer of whether or not you're ready. Like if you sign up for my newsletter, you get that coherence guide and you're like, oh God, no.
Right.
Very clearly, I am a no for you.
Yeah. So I'm going to end by asking you. So the name of this podcast is Crazy Beautiful Truth. I named it so because I have believed since I was a teeny tiny little person that there is always some crazy beautiful truth at play that I may or may not have access to. What does that phrase mean to you? Crazy beautiful truth.
I think that's for me, that's the gift. That's what you get, right? People are always looking, okay, but Amar, but what do I get out of this? All right, if existential well being is not enough for you, if peace of mind and a life that feels like paradise isn't enticing enough, you arrive at your truth. You will, I promise, continue to explore within and excavate that inner landscape, and you will find it.
Thank you for your time. Thank you for your devotion to your work and to our well-being who have been beneficiaries. Thanks for being here.
You're welcome. Thank you. It was so much fun.